Good evening, sir. Hello. Shall we start, sir?
Yes.
Okay, sir. On behalf of the Professional Development Committee of the Institute of Cost Accountants of India, I welcome all the participants and our today's speaker, Dr. VVRN Sastry, sir, for the today's last sessions on the series on carbon market. Now I request sir to kindly start the session, sir.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, sir.
I shared my screen. Could you see that? And
Yes,
all the
yes.
candidates could see, right?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, fine, great. Yeah.
Okay.
So today is our last session in the series on carbon markets. And today's session being part of our part 3 is going to deal with the role of CMA in carbon markets. Okay. In the international parlance, CMA means Certified Management Accountant, but from the Indian perspective, CMA is. Can I request all the guests to mute their respective mics because we are hearing weird sounds. Yeah, that may cause disturbance to all. Yeah, thank you. So now CMAs from the Indian context. CMAs from the Indian context, when we see it is the cost and management accountants, basically that is the guys coming out from Institute of Cost Accountants of India. So what is the role that we can play in these carbon markets in India and also internationally is what the crux of our today's topic and discussion. Yeah. In that context, let's go one by one. Before just getting into the role, we as CMAs have a lot of commitments towards carbon credits. From those commitments only, our role gets defined and our nature of duties that we are supposed to perform and that we can perform as a part of advisory, consultancy, and compliance is part of it, whatever it is. We derive that from the commitments of CMAs. There are 4 commitments for CMAs in the context of carbon credits. First one is we are committed for carbon neutrality in the sense that we work for the organizations and we take a commitment stating that the organizations offset their carbon emissions by purchasing rights or certificates that reflect renewable energy production or other global systems such as forestation to offset the release of carbon into the atmosphere. That means we are voluntarily undertaking by stating that the organizations for which we serve, we will make them as carbon neutral. That is from where our role stems up, because the organizations for whom we are going to work or we work for, we have to offset their carbon emissions, and that kind of offsetting their carbon emissions is going to happen by purchasing carbon credits or certificates that reflect green energy production somewhere or other global systems such as forestation. That means growing greenery to offset the release of carbon into the atmosphere. So friends, please follow very keenly these commitments. So the second commitment is net zero carbon. Like how we are committed in the first instance for carbon neutrality, similar way, we should also be committed towards net zero carbon. What does this mean? The organizations have to reduce their carbon emissions to align with 1.5 degrees C science-based targets. The organizations have To accomplish this through direct abatement to the largest extent possible and neutralization of remaining atmospheric greenhouse gases emissions through carbon dioxide removal. In the sense that today the organizations with whomever we work or with whomever we are intending to work or going to work in the future will have to commit themselves also to align their goals in terms of emissions with 1.5 degrees C, which is a science-based target in terms of emissions for the organizations. And the organizations have to accomplish this, and they have to accomplish this through direct abatement to the largest extent possible and neutralization of remaining atmospheric greenhouse gases emissions through carbon dioxide removal. Net to net, what we are committing is we are telling that organizations have to maintain a minimum emission according to the global standards. And if they don't maintain towards neutralization, they have to, I mean to say, participate or follow in carbon credit mechanism. We'll make them to do so. If they don't do, we'll make them to do so as CMEs. Then our third commitment is carbon negative. Organizations, that is to say the organizations for which we work, have instituted activities that not only eliminate all carbon emissions, but actually reduce the amount in the atmosphere through recapture. This goes past the balance of a net zero goal and means that the organizations removes more carbon from the atmosphere than it emits. Means you you work for the organizations not to make them just carbon neutral in the first instance or to make them net zero carbon, but to make them carbon negative. Carbon negative, when you make them, what's going to happen is they actually contribute more for atmosphere by recapturing the carbon from the atmosphere, and that will make our living easy. So in a way, you are advancing your commitment from the first two commitments. And the final fourth commitment is climate neutral. The organizations with whom we work will have to offset all of its greenhouse gas emissions, carbon dioxide, and other greenhouse gas emissions by purchasing rights or certificates that reflect renewable energy production or other global systems such as forestation to offset the release of the carbon into the atmosphere. This is also similar to carbon neutral. Climate neutral is similar to carbon neutral, but as the nomenclatures differs, this is also made as a commitment before defining the role that a CMEA can play in the carbon credit markets. So I think, friends, you all are clear on the part of commitments of CMEAs towards carbon credits. Now, let's say any CMA, for that matter, any professional needs to have certain drivers driving him towards his professional goal. Here, when our professional goal is the commitment that we did as CMA towards atmosphere through carbon neutrality, net zero carbon, carbon negative, and climate neutral, then there are certain drivers that are going to drive us in our profession in performing our duties. So, from commitments, the birth of drivers took place. Drivers are basically prepare Indian economy and also preparing and while preparing Indian economy for carbon credits mechanism, we also prepare ourselves in that atmosphere. In that sense, we also prepare ourselves while preparing Indian economy in terms of carbon credit trading and also preparing for an economy in which greenhouse gas emissions carry a cost. That is to say, when our government recently came out with a notification that very shortly we are going to have carbon credit markets, that means our government is preparing us to get ourselves into the carbon markets from the Indian side. That is where, as Indian professionals, we have to not only prepare our clients towards the carbon neutral environment or for all other commitments that we have as CMEs for carbon free atmosphere, but we also prepare ourselves in accordance with the government, I mean to say, notifications uh, which it has made with an endeavor to make carbon free atmosphere in India. Okay. And then the second driver of our profession is organizational considerations in initiating a decarbonization plan. See, whether it is governmental policy or we as professionals helping government in implementing their plans according to the law of the land. While doing so, ultimately, the implementers are our clients, they are the organizations, and we need to make them consider, and they also need to consider in initiating a decarbonization plan. Only then the plan will be successful. Okay, so the prime drivers of our profession in carbon credit markets will be these two, but the practices, I mean to say the professional practices which we can see for making, I mean to say, a fee oriented income for ourselves can happen from five broad areas. One, creating a greenhouse gas assessment for decision making. To this, we can make money. I'll elaborate on this while we move forward. Okay. Second, by estimating the cost of emissions, we can generate a fee for ourselves. And then, while participating along with our client in decarbonization actions, we can also earn fee income from the carbon credit segment. And also, we can help the clients in strategies for meeting their carbon targets given by the government and the global environment. And then finally, the fifth area from which we can gain money as a part of our profession in the form of fees while advising the clients is sustainability and climate disclosure guidelines. While making the clients follow the sustainability and climate disclosure guidelines, we as professionals have our own role. Okay. So from these five practice areas, through these two drivers, from four commitments stems up our professional role. Now, let's talk in terms of our own terminology. That is, what's the overall role of CMA? Okay. CMA, or if I call it from a global perspective, a management accountant, you say, can deliver enormous value in reducing companies' carbon footprint by applying their competencies and skills in areas such as strategic planning, financial analysis, risk management, internal controls and reporting, technology solutions, activity analysis, capital budgeting, and investor relations. These are all going to be the broad areas of CMEs within the ambit of carbon markets. Okay. And now let's see one by one. Okay. That is role of CMA. This is what I said. Role of CMA. Uh, we I showed you in the first drivers. Role of CMA. The drivers are prepare Indian economy, and also preparing for an economy in which CHG emissions carry a cost. This is what we are discussing elaborately in this slide. Role of CMA, that is prepare Indian economy, and also preparation for an economy in which greenhouse gas emissions carry a cost. Okay, and here the organizations for whom we serve must have considerations for decarbonizing. Okay, why? If you question, the answer is today governments and private sector are confronting climate change with increasing urgency. As the world considers the costs of status quo, the onus will fall increasingly on organizations to respond by measuring the greenhouse gas emissions, estimating the costs versus establishing new strategies and finding low or zero emission alternatives, even if only to respond to competitive business pressures. But CMEs involved in sustainability highlight new opportunities over the short, intermediate, and long term that come from managing risks and taking advantage of opportunities as the economy transitions. That is to say, friends, any organization which thinks of decarbonizing itself and participating in the green mechanism led by the government, there they have to necessarily take the help of a CMA in not only actually in not only estimating the costs versus establishing new strategies, and also they have to utilize the services of CMAs in finding low or zero emission alternatives, even if they have to respond to competitive business pressures. So this is where the role of CMA begins. Again, role of CMA as a part of internal driver, as a part of external driver will also be imminent. Let us see what exactly it is. In risk management, it's an internal driver basically for the role of a CMA. In risk management, what a CMA does as a part of an organization is he estimates the cost emissions, and he also estimates the threat of new regulatory constraints. That is to say, as far as India goes, this is a new regulatory mechanism which is going to evolve over a period of time. Okay, so in this new regulatory environment, we as CMAs will find out for the clients the new regulatory constraints and limits on carbon emissions, such as the carbon taxes will be evaluated and emission trading markets available will be evaluated by us, and we also force organizations to become innovative to plan their costs. I mean to say, whatever the avoid these costs may not be a right word, but we help the companies in planning to reduce their costs. Okay, that is how I would like to correct that word. Yeah, these business responses we have to create from the clientele perspective. We have to estimate the costs of emission, and we have to estimate the new regulatory constraints, and we have to estimate the limits on the part of carbon emissions, and we have to advise the clients on carbon taxes, and we have to advise the clients on emission trading markets, and also we have to make the client reduce his costs. That is where our major role takes place as CMEs. Okay, these business responses that we create, however, affect organizations of all sizes as they anticipate and act to respond to market effects of these regulatory changes. Here, friends, there is no restriction going to be on what's the size of the organization going to be. Any organization which emits into the clean atmosphere any kind of emissions in the form of CO2 or greenhouse gas emissions, they all are going to be our universe in terms of clientele. They will be our clientele. Okay. Here, whether you do it for a big company or you do it for a small company, the nature of work is going to be the same. So your fee income, whether it is a big client or a small client, can be the same, and that should be, I mean to say, a median kind of fee income, which when taken in volumes of clients, one can earn very good sums from these carbon credits markets. Okay, for example, given the announcement by major vehicle manufacturers to produce electric vehicles, downstream fossil fuel distributors who fail to modify their business models may sustain asset impairment. Friends, today, everywhere, in every part of the globe, everybody is talking about electric vehicles because you reduce the pollution from these vehicles. So, what we need to understand here is under the carbon credit mechanism, when the technology on the part of vehicles is fast changing, even in India, then if in the downstream, if there are fossil fuel distributors and manufacturers, then they will also have to modify their business models, my friends. Otherwise, their complete business will go away in a short span of time. That is where we as CMAs can help these companies in mitigating the transition risks, and we can call them to adjust their strategies meeting the new regulatory requirements. Okay, this is one example. Likewise, umpteen number of examples can be given for showing our role in the carbon credits market, basically. And then, friends, resilience, efficiencies, and opportunities. They are also internal drivers of our profession. Bringing an organization's attention to its greenhouse gas emissions footprint is considered an essential first step in assessing its risks. Instead of waiting for a client to walk in or get referred to us, it is our duty, my friends, by mastering the regulation relating to carbon credits, we need to go to the client and make him aware, educate him right from the beginning, the need for him to transition into what you call these carbon credit markets. That's where you have to act as an anchor, and you will have the initial lead to gain the client right from educating the concept to taking him towards the carbon credit markets. Okay, and then you also can do a corporate assessment and decarbonization initiative. Therefore, is an investment in corporate resilience and process by which organization can begin not only to mitigate the risks but also move forward on new opportunities. You, by helping the clients and educating them on the part of this carbon credit mechanism, which is going to get implemented in India, you are creating a market for this, but at the same time, you are creating a professional aviation for yourself also in the whole process. That you need to always keep in mind, which is a new opportunity for you. Okay, and you are getting this opportunity not just for the sake of regulation itself, but also you are making the client in cost saving, in his cost saving efforts. You are helping him by showing him operational efficiencies, and you as a CMA can conduct greenhouse gas emissions assessment also, and can reveal valuable insights that were not previously considered regarding the use of resources such as energy, water, materials, and human talent. Okay. The greenhouse gas emission assessment or CO2 assessment can also be done by CMAs. That can also be an area of practice for them, and they can help the companies again in reducing their costs on resources such as energy, water, materials, and human talent. This will also be a value addition to you, the companies, and the practice of carbon reduction. Your actions will initiate steps towards reducing wastage for the companies. In some fronts, enabling efficiency simultaneously helps decarbonize and save other valuable services and resources. Yeah, this this we just I mean to say completed the first point of driver, that is to say prepare Indian economy and also preparing for an economy in which CHG emissions carry a cost. So now we'll go to the second slide. Okay, this is actually a continuation to an extent, but it will answer the second part of the whole heading basically. Yeah, preparation for an economy in which CHG emissions carry a cost. Cost benefit carbon reduction. Again, like cost benefit analysis, we as CMAs can do cost benefit carbon reduction, which is again an internal driver in our profession. And companies have to assess, and companies are assessing anyway, the cost benefit of carbon reduction initiatives and viewing them as long-term investments. Example, I would like to quote here. Delta Airlines announced a plan to invest $1 billion over 10 years for a series of actions towards becoming a carbon neutral carrier. Many of these actions relate to physical assets, such as retiring and replacing older aircrafts, improving flight operations, decreasing the use of fuel, and reducing cargo. Delta's plan also includes enhanced stakeholder engagement, which brings value to organizations' process. Look at this example, friends. Delta Airlines announced an investment of 1 billion over 10 years. Even 1 billion by 10, if you take point billion at least, right? Point 1 billion, right? 1 by 10, yeah. 1 billion is going to be spent every year. That's going to give good opportunities to all the professionals involved in helping the company in having them a good plan towards neutralization of carbon emissions. Okay, so there the role of a CMA is to help the company in asset planning and also in helping the company in replacing their old assets and also in improving their operations basically, and also in helping them decrease their use of fuel, which emits a lot of carbon, and also reduce the cargo. Okay. So with that kind of plans, the professionals got attached to Delta have immensely benefited, and they have been implementing this plan for the past few years. It's ongoing plan and program. Okay. So Delta's plan also include enhanced stakeholder engagement, which brings value to the organization process. Here, the CMAs, management accountants, basically, as they are certified management accountants, as they are called in USA, and Delta is from USA, basically, in USA. There, they engage the CMAs also in stakeholder engagement to bring value to the organizational process. Stakeholders engagement means what they did is they not only hired CMAs to help them in all these plans, but they also hired CMAs to help them in what you call communicating with their stakeholders, creditors, debtors, lenders, and shareholders, whatnot. That way, whoever is related to the company's activities in one way or the other, with all those stakeholders, the dialogue on the part of carbon neutrality has been given as a charge to the CMEs by Delta. Okay. And then, friends, creating and preserving intangible value. This is again an internal driver for the role of CMEs to evolve. Okay, measuring and reducing companies' carbon footprint by seeking low or zero emission alternatives represent a financial hedge against the impairment of valuable assets and operations as the market continues to reward investments that are less fossil fuel dependent. It facilitates the preservation and building of trust based relationships with stakeholders, including policymakers, which can translate into more secure long term cash flow expectations. Following a business as in the past scenario, companies will be increasingly exposed not only to the physical disruptions of climate change, but also to the costs of emissions. As a CMA, your role starts with measuring the carbon footprint of a company. That is to say, the carbon emissions that a company does, that will be measured by you in objective terms because you know the cost implications of it. Okay. And you help the company in devising a plan for reducing that carbon footprint. Okay. There, your objective and goal is to make the company go for low emissions or zero emission alternatives. Okay. And this is where, again, as a CMA, you are going to represent the company in their financial hedge in the transition from the old technology to new technology, even the financial hedge that the company does in terms of procuring new equipments while doing cost benefit carbon reduction analysis over there, you will also be helping the company in raising the required funds, and you will help the company in what you call to do you will make the you will make the company benefit with the reward that the company get through the financial hedge of new investments. Okay, so it facilitates the preservation, actually, that is to say the preservation and building of trust based relationships you are going to create with the stakeholders, and in that process you will be dealing with policymakers, and you will also be translating the policymakers vision into more secure long-term cash flow expectations for your clients. Okay, and follow a business as in the past scenario, and companies will be increasingly exposed to not only to the physical disruptions, climate change, but also to the cost of emissions. So friends, these points you need to capture what kind of role we can take from the available universe of these drivers. Okay, that's where I'm trying to re-emphasize some of the key points after a point has been read. Then, friends, customer demand is an external driver. Now we are getting into external drivers. Customer demand is an external driver. Example, you may ask, that is, corporate buyers representing 4.3 trillion in annual procurement spend in 2020 requested climate-related data regarding their supplies from CDP, formerly Carbon Disclosure Project, which houses the largest global database for company-reported GHG greenhouse gas emissions. Globally, consumers, particularly millennials and younger market segments, are willing to pay more for sustainable brands. This is the change that we are finding from the buying patterns emerging from the millennials, because the millennials are not minding to spend more, provided the consumption oriented product that they want to buy, whether it is a brand or non-brand item, even if it is costly, but if it is environmental friendly, they are willing to chip out slightly higher amounts also. That is where suppliers today are insisting the manufacturing units that they should be carbon compliant. So here, every year and every month also, there is a carbon disclosure report, CDP. Okay, it houses the largest global database of the companies who have been following the greenhouse gas emissions regulations and have been what we call contributing to green environment. To such kind of companies, when they are listed in the suppliers list of CDP, big big procurers worldwide, what they do is, as a precondition for their supplies, they see this directory and check whether the company is covered under CDP or not. If it is covered under CDP and if it is compliant in terms of carbon credits, then only they give their orders. So if you look at the market of such kind of market in the world, where people are preferring to go for only carbon credit compliant companies, is to the tune of $4.3 trillion market it is. So it's very huge, bigger than the Indian economy in a year put together, Indian GDP in a year put together. So it's a huge market. So there is a great amount of awareness towards carbon credit compliances is happening across the world with quality based companies, because customers are insisting. That is customer driven demand. It's an external driver making these companies becoming carbon compliant. Okay, and then investor demands and disclosure standards. This is also an external driver. The growing pressure from disclosures of environmental, social, and governance (ESG) data to satisfy the demands of the financial markets, including shareholders, leading to lenders, insurers, rating agencies, and financial regulators insist the large institutional investors such as BlackRock, Vanguard, and State Street, along with government employee pension funds around the world, pushing companies to measure and report on ESG. Friends, today it's becoming a regular routine for big time investors like BlackRock, Vanguard, State Street, and also wherever government pension funds invest in the form of private equity funds, or wherever the FDIs takes place, there also companies are pushing for the ESG report, that is environmental, social, and governance report, as a part of any unit, which whether it is in manufacturing or it is in services, okay, or it's in agriculture, whatever it is. So they are insisting on that. If they are compliant according to the ESG report provided by a professional like you and I, then only these investment companies come forward to invest. So like how a financial statement is essential to understand the financial health of the company, similarly the investors are also looking at the ESG report, ESG audit, as important as financial audit for their investments to get committed by them. So through this as an external driver, investors are demanding today the disclosure standard, and this is providing us the opportunity to participate in this carbon compliances and disclosures market. Okay, and even friends, listed companies of certain market cap, of certain capital size today have to compulsorily report on ESG, even in Indian stock markets. But also, even small companies, whoever voluntarily are willing to disclose, they are also encouraged by government in India to do so. So I have seen myself about 10-15 companies from SME segment today reporting ESG as a part of balance sheet by annexing at least 1 to 2 pages. Okay. So likewise, this began in a small way. This needs to catch up, and this is where professionals like you and I can play a greater role. Yeah. And then, as a part of further continuation of this, even peer pressure is an external driver, my friends. Peer pressure in the sense, as environmental data becomes increasingly pivotal in investment decision making, companies are concerned about the effects of poor ESG rating in comparison to their peers. An overwhelming number of studies examining the link between sustainability and financial performance have concluded that good ESG practices effectively lower the cost of capital. The research demonstrates that investors view ESG ratings as an indication that management is paying attention to the most relevant risks within their businesses and responding with agility to deliver on changing stakeholder expectations. In fact, on the first day of this series, one of the guests have asked me a question: what's the role of rating agencies going to be in the carbon footprint? Basically, the rating that they bring out in terms of an ESG rating, okay, that rating given by the rating agencies will also act as a barometer for investors to take a call to know whether the company is practicing the best practices in its manufacturing or not, and for them to take a decision in terms of any kind of investment commitments. So maybe going forward, ESG rating may also become a must, like our financial rating for financial instruments like debentures, equity, whatever it is, right? Right. The similar way, like for individuals, we have the individual personal financing. Also, we have a rating system, right? Similarly, so this ESG rating may also catch up going forward. Yeah. And
पैन 40 काफी है इसके लिए पैन 40 काफी है नहीं
आराम से वो पैन 40 देने से भी बंद हो जाएगा सब
hello, can you
और एक
please
नेप्रोलेक्स क्या होता है
mute yourself, sir?
नेप्रोलेक्स कुछ है ना
Hello?
टॉयलेट ब्रो
Hello,
जैसे
sir?
वो ये दिया तुमने
Hello, sir?
नॉर्फ्लक्स ठीक है
हाँ हाँ उससे भी
वो टू से ही काम
Hello,
होता है
sir?
नॉर्फ्लक्स अभी
Can you
उतना
mute
यूज नहीं
yourself?
करता है
Admin, can you mute the person? Thank you. So through peer pressure, basically, and to rate the people, the best people among the peer group, we may get ESG ratings as mandatory ratings going forward. Okay, and environmental data definitely is going to become a great pivotal in investment decision making going forward. Okay, a poor rating will make the companies in not getting any kind of finances going forward, and a good rating may help the companies in expediting their required finances be expedited by the institutions and investors. Then comes, friends, professional ethics, which is also a driver, which is an external driver, classified as an external driver, and professional accountancy, professional ethics in professional accountancy. Okay, governments, non-profits, and businesses, large and small, can't run without professional accountants. This we all know anyway. This puts the profession in a powerful position to influence all organizations' approach to climate action. And for all organizations seeking to act, effective action will require the trust and expertise that professional accountants bring to the table. To stay relevant in the new paradigm, professional accountants must apply their competencies to meet the demand for actionable assessments. Friends, we do our degrees at one point of time or the other in the time wheel. But as times are changing, as technologies are changing, as new regulations are coming, we also need to be up to date. what we gained in the form of a certificate may not be relevant today unless we upgrade ourselves and up to date ourselves in terms of changing regulations, changing technologies, changing needs, whatever it is. That is where even accountancy norms are going to change, are changing, and ethics are changing, okay, ever changing. So in that context, how best we can make ourselves with the latest available, I mean to say, the subject knowledge, and make our client completely geared up to comply with the required things, not in mechanical manner, but in true letter and spirit. Today we just see things in mechanical way, but that's not the way going to solve the issues. Rather than bringing out booklets after booklets, it's better if we see whether the implementation is really there or not. That's the required ethic that we are expected in our professional accountancy. And I feel here CMEs have an edge over CAs because if you ask me frankly, CAs look at the accounts and the accounts processes. That's it. But CMAs are the real contributors for the costs. I mean to say, in a P&L, if you look at it, a revenue side and expenses side. Expenses side is though equivalent in sums to the revenue side or slightly more, slightly lesser, whatever it is. It makes profit or loss increase or decrease. But expenses comes through various heads. So we, the cost and management accountants, masters of this part of P&L, have a higher role actually in dealing with the companies. And also remember, on the asset side of balance sheet, it is the cost accountant who is the master. Maybe on the liability side, CS may be masters, but on the asset side, CMEs are definitely masters. So when compared to CS, helping the companies in the carbon credit markets, there CMEs have an upper hand, and that upper hand should be supported by the knowledge base that you gain in the changing, I mean to say, carbon credit market scenario. And if you obtain that knowledge and if you are up to date with the latest happenings, and then maybe you will have an advantage in terms of professional advancement when compared to CAs. And then, friends, CMA's competencies in addressing an organization's carbon footprint. So far, so we have dealt with the drivers. Now we are coming into the competencies. That is to say, as I told in the first slide, the first two things have been covered almost. The second thing, of course, I'm going to cover here a bit of it, and then comes the practice areas. So before doing that, I prefer a 3 minutes break for all of us because I just would like to have a tea and come back in 3 minutes. Hope you will all cooperate. Yeah, thank you.
Madam, can you ask sir to put the slideshow on because the screen becomes very small when it is not on.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
Yeah, I have come back. So if you are ready, I can just move forward. Are you ready? I think, yeah, all are here. Yes. Yeah, now we are talking about, yeah, that's fine. Somebody asked for zooming the screen for them to see the slides. Yes. Yeah. CMA's competencies in addressing an organization's carbon footprint. These are the required core competencies, friends, for us as CMAs. Because we as CMAs play a crucial role in companies addressing sustainable business management and ESG reporting. ESG reporting sit outside of the finance and accounting function of CS. Remember, worldwide, ESG reporting is not the function of CA. So here also we can insist an institution can take a lead in convincing the government that as far as carbon credits goes, as far as ESG reporting goes, that should be exclusively made as the domain of CMAs. Okay, because we have a precedent coming from the world, because worldwide it's not the domain of CS. So, because worldwide the presumption is that CMAs gather reliable data, evaluate alternatives, and make recommendations aligned with an organization's purpose, values, business model, strategic initiatives, and risk management. Not just that, CMAs provide robust oversight to data gathering and analysis processes, leading information-based decision-making across the enterprise. CMAs have the competencies to meet regulatory and market demands, build processes, analyze projects, and implement capital budgets for long-term investments in plant and equipment. That being the case, now if you see pictorially whatever I have shown here, this shows the entire crux of the capabilities and competencies of CMAs. When compared to CS also, we have an edge over them. One is strategy, planning, and performance. Okay. As a part of strategy, planning, and performance, you create a sought after culture and you build relationships with the stakeholders and you estimate the costs of carbon emissions of the companies and you avoid impairment standing of assets and operations because you have cost focus as a part of your CMA qualification and you identify and implement energy and other resource efficiencies and you analyze contracts for renewable energy. That's where you as a CMA is superior. Okay. And then you as a CMA expected to show leadership qualities. What kind of leadership qualities? You should satisfy the interests of stakeholders such as policymakers, employees, customers, investors, and the community at large. And you should be seen as responsible, innovative, forward-looking guy representing companies. And you should demonstrate business resilience and commitment to long-term value creation for your clients. Not just that, friends. As a CMA, you also have an edge in terms of technology and analytics. Why and how? As a part of costing, you will be learning a lot in improving the quality of data and you will be understanding as a part of production, productivity, cost effectiveness, you will be learning and knowing a lot in understanding the use of technology to improve energy and other efficiencies. And you analyze an organization's means for storing and retrieving information. streamlining communications and reporting processes. That is where your role is commendable. And then we have a reporting and control function, which is also led by CMEs quite well world across. That is satisfying regulatory demands for corporate disclosure and satisfying investor demands for corporate disclosure and outperforming or keeping at pace with peers on investor dashboards and lowering the cost of capital charged by the lenders and building controls and oversight over new types of data, climate, and other ESG. So here also in reporting and control, you have an edge. And business acumenship and operations wise, yes, CMEs are one step forward in terms of one, supporting facilities and operational teams on modernizing equipment, supporting facilities teams on reducing waste, partnering with suppliers, and collaborating with large business customers. They can help and they are helping and they will help the companies in building great companies at low costs. And then in terms of professional ethics and values, promoting the profession's commitment to trust, excellence, and transparency, and building the public's trust in business enterprise are the essential ethical things that CMEs need to follow. So this is the whole crux of CMEs competencies, friends. Hope you all got it well. And now let's move to practices. I showed you that we have 5 kinds of practices available under carbon credit market. So what are all they? Let us see one by one. So practices of CMEs, first and foremost is creating a greenhouse gas assessment for decision making. So you as a CMA, you create a greenhouse gas emission assessment for decision making. What do you do as a part of that? Before that, let me explain to you. This is a side, I mean to say, one kind of master for us, guiding us. I have covered so far this top blue portion. Now I am in this the first green portion after the top blue. In as a part of the first green portion, I'm talking about creating a greenhouse gas assessment. As a part of creating a greenhouse gas assessment, here there is a spelling error, but it should be read as GHG, greenhouse gas assessment. There, we as CMEs identify activities and we measure estimates. What do we do as a part of these 2 functions? We prepare for low or carbon neutral operations. Businesses with leadership of their CMA teams, enterprises can perform a reliable GHG inventory, that is greenhouse gas emission inventory, that connects with the organization's business model and strategic planning. What you need to do is you need to identify the activities of a company, firm, factory, premises, services, whatever it is, that produce greenhouse gas emissions. You need to identify that. And you need to find out the sourcing of emission factors. And then you need to set the boundaries according to the regulatory and scope, and then gather reliable data for the variations of the allowed greenhouse gas emissions plus allowed greenhouse gas emissions, whether they are followed and whether the company is in surplus as a part of variance analysis or the company is in deficit as a part of variance analysis, that you need to do. So you identify what's the emission rate, you measure the emission rate, you set the boundaries according to the regulatory norms, and then you find the variance and then implement the action by suggesting it to the companies what they need to do. That is to say, whether they need to buy carbon credits or sell, or they can sell carbon credits, or they have to go for some alternative mechanisms, what they need to do. or have, and also you can advise the companies on new technologies. You can advise the companies on offset markets. So likewise, lot many options you can provide to the clients as a part of this creating CHG assessment for decision making practice. This is number one practice area of CMAs in carbon credit markets. And then friends, the second one, the second blue block, as a part of that, CMAs also have another practice area, that is not only identifying how much emission is getting out of a particular premises or a particular client's operations, but you need to equate those emissions in terms of cost. That means to say, that is, I mean to say, you need to convert those emissions in terms of costing methodologies and tell exactly what kind of cost they have. That is your function only, exclusive function of CMAs. So, led by management accountants and for purpose of internal assessments, organizations may utilize different means to operationalize how authorities and market may impose costs on emissions. Okay, an organization, for example, may consider the following techniques. Suppose say companies, as a part of assessing or estimating their cost of emissions, they will appoint CMAs. Okay, and CMAs, they do the internal assessments, and while doing the internal assessments, CMAs may utilize different means to operationalize how the authorities and markets may impose costs on emissions, and then they may they may use or they may consider many techniques. But I have just mentioned some of the techniques here. They are: number one, internal carbon fee system. That is to say, the goal of an internal carbon fee is to identify the operational units that are most responsible for the organization's overall emissions and to incentivize reductions. To do so, the organization charges business units internally for their respective shares of the costs or carbon emissions. The aggregated amounts are then awarded internally to projects for emissions reductions or other sustainable business initiatives. It's like, friends, internal carbon system, you will assess first. Okay, for that, you will look at all the operational units, okay, that are responsible in terms of what you call emissions, and also the operational units which are well within the control of set limits of emissions. So here in one company, if there are 10 units, this question was asked by somebody yesterday. If one company has 10 units, say 6 units are in surplus and 4 units are in deficit, then you help the companies in aggregating their overall emissions and also incentives that they can get in terms of reductions and the internal set-offs that you do, and then finally you arrive at what is to be the strategy that the company as a whole needs to follow in the carbon credit markets. So this is one practice area for you as a part of estimating the cost of emissions. Then you also do, friends, shadow pricing. What is this shadow pricing in carbon credits? The organization estimates a price for decision making, evaluating the recoverability of GHG intensive investments, assets, and operations, and evaluating alternatives. A shadow price is based on various assumptions. No actual transfer of fund occurs. Instead, the price on carbon is used to assist in evaluating an investment decision. That is to say, your client who has engaged you is asking you a plan. What he is telling you is, hey, you tell me how if I invest some money and reduce carbons, reduce my emissions, then what's the benefit that I am going to get through carbon credit markets? There, what you will do is you will take the costs involved in terms of investments for assets and also for the operations, and you evaluate various alternatives, and you take a shadow pricing of the price for carbons per ton, that is the unit that is used. The benefit that you calculate as a price that you can get for the cost that you are incurring, and find out the differential and tell the client through shadow pricing, I have done this analysis for you. This is what you are saving. This is what is your profit from this venture. So you should go ahead for this carbon credits planning. So that role also you need to play. And then you have a role in terms of an implicit price. What is this implicit price? This cost factor is based on how much a company spends in complying with government regulations, such as new fuel efficiency standards. Given the number and varied nature of these programs, it is beneficial for management accountants to collaborate with other corporate professionals, such as members of the legal, public policy, sustainability, and operational teams. Here in this implicit pricing, the companies wants to know how much they need to spend in complying with the government regulations. Okay, as and when there are new fuel efficiency standards, they need to change their technologies to adhere to the new fuel efficiency standards. And we are also certain times not allowed to take the old generation carbon emitting vehicles. Actually, we were banned from taking, okay, the BS6 as per BS6 norm. So there I feel for mitigating such kind of risks, you as a management accountant, while assessing the cost factors, you also need to collaborate with other professionals like legal guys, public policy guys, sustainability and operational teams, because this is not just relating to a cost aspect, but also a legal matter which has its intricacies and interdisciplinary role played by other professions also. So when you work combinedly with all these professionals, you will be in a position to serve better to your client. And the above are some of the examples of various practices that you can adopt in estimating the cost of emissions and the benefits for the clients. But regardless, friends, of the current trading prices today, spot rates means the various exchanges of carbon credits, wherever the rates are there for carbon, in order to assess current and planned investments in a range of assets and operations, it is beneficial for management accountants to consider price trends and expectations. In aiming to counter the physical damage from climate change, authorities and market forces will continue to drive the cost of emissions, and management accountants will be developing sound analysis for risk management, innovation, and strategic plans that results in performance and value over short, medium, and long terms. So ultimately, you as CMA, your duty is to get the maximum fetching trading price for your client for the carbon credit. That is the spot rate. If you are selling, you will get the best rate. If you are buying, you will look at the lower rate. Okay. So both sides you need to look at it. When you look at the higher price from the seller side, there also you need to keep in mind the complete strategy that you need to follow in terms of management, innovation, and strategic plans, etc. And the same kind of planning you need to do even to reduce the cost for your client while buying the carbon credits. And friends, while meeting the targeted returns, I think this we are continuing. No, this is the third practice area. Yeah, this is the third practice area. That is the meeting the targeted reductions. Okay, first, second, third practice area. Yeah, setting greenhouse gas emission goals and tracking progress. Here, how you can help your clients is there are various actions a company can take to reduce or eliminate its emissions. Referred by the term decarbonize. These include one, improving operational efficiencies through projects that reduce the amount of energy used, reducing greenhouse gas emissions by changing the type of energy used, and purchasing offsets to alleviate the environmental effects, working with suppliers to reduce the greenhouse gas emissions of inputs, addressing the greenhouse gas emissions inherent in how business customers and consumers use a product. These are all various areas in which you can involve yourself along with your client in his mission for decarbonizing and in his mission for following the regulatory norms. So here you will be playing a varied role, not just in improving operational efficiencies, but also reducing GHG emissions, that is greenhouse gas emissions, and you will help your client in purchasing offsets, and also you work with various suppliers to reduce the GHG emissions, and you address the GHG emissions inherent in the business in terms of customers and consumers, how best they use your product in making your product appealing to your customers and consumers. You will also help your client in improving his business. These are all the various ways your advisory areas actually can cover the client. And then establishing a baseline assessment. You initiate the assessment process of an organization and you establish a baseline of emissions. This initial measurement serves as a means for setting realistic targets and measuring progress over subsequent periods. Suppose say, as a CMA, when you were tasked, then what you will do is you will set a baseline of emissions to your client. And then you set means you set based on the government norms or based on the prevailing markets around you. You take that stance by telling your client that, hey, if you follow this baseline, you are in the safest zone and you will gain. That way you can advise your client. Okay, this measurement, actually the baseline measurement, serves as a benchmark like for your client over a period of time. But as and when you feel that that benchmark needs to be changed, maybe the baseline number also needs to be changed to a higher level or lower level depending on the performance of your client. For that, as a management accountant, you need to use your judgment to consider the adjustment to normalize the baseline year. Okay, and then target setting you need to do. For the greenhouse gas emissions, targets vary based on sector and industry, geography and competition. So the targets are not universal, like they vary based on sector and industry, geography and competition. Targets are also based on management commitment and the veracity and the thoroughfulness of an initial baseline assessment and subsequent updates. For example, certain energy intensive industries such as construction, oil and gas, and mineral extraction rely heavily on science-based data to set targets for reducing GHG emissions. And here you have two types of targets. Establishing emission targets requires strategic thinking. Here, as a CMA, you're also a strategic thinker for your client. There are different kinds of emission targets that call for different types of measurement and activity. One is absolute target. One target is called as the absolute target. This target aims to reduce emissions by fixed percentage of amount, by fixed percentage or an amount. Example, company plans to reduce emissions by 25% by 2030. And then second we have is the intensity target. The intensity target is a target that aims to reduce emissions relative to a type of economic output such as revenue, number of employees, or square foot. Example, company B plans to reduce scope 1 emissions by 20% per square foot. So here the targets can be set by you for your client either by following absolute targets or by following intensity target mechanism, whatever it suits the sector or industry or the geography, and also based on the competition. Okay. And then again, in continuation of meeting the targeted reductions, a CMA has to set targets by time frame. Most suitable business initiatives are developed to meet targets over the intermediate and long term. The timing of targeted reductions must align with an organization's overall strategic planning and its goals of acting responsibly to stakeholder expectations. Working in tandem, the United Nations and national governments express global and national emission reduction targets in terms of target dates such as 2025, 2030, and 2050. Similarly, organizations that are incorporating carbon pricing and global and greenhouse gas emissions reductions into their business strategies typically express reductions in terms of a target year. So when you set targets and while planning for your client to meet those targets, you also need to set the time frames. The time frame can be an year, or it can be according to the global and national emission reduction targets set by United Nations. And you can take a benchmark here, like say, I will reduce this much emission by 2025. I will reduce this much by 2030. I will reduce this much by 2050. Like that, you can create and set those time frames for your targets. And then for setting these targets, you need to use external resources. What are all those external resources? In setting targets, management accountant partnering with key members of other business units can refer to both internal assessment as well as this external source of information comes from other parts of other exchanges, other. Hello, hello, sir. Hello, sir. Yeah, thank you. Yeah, other it's actually spoiling the concentration. Somebody keeps on the mic and speaks, it spoils the flow. Yeah. Anyway, one can use various resources for collecting the target. I mean to say, for collecting the information about setting up the targets. For that, one can partner with various key members of other business units, and also they can refer to both the internal assessment as well as external sources of information. Internal sources will be within the company and within the I mean to say the manpower dealing with the carbon credits. External sources can be the sources from various exchanges in the world. You will come to know the standards being followed by various companies that you can analyze, and you can always tell the companies, hey, here is a precedent, here is a case study, like that. Okay. And resources are basically science-based resources, comparables, government set targets. So this is how the target we will set either on the basis of science or on the basis of comparables or on the basis of government set targets. Okay. And then we have practice of CMAs. This is the last area, that is the reporting to external stakeholders. This is also a part of CMA's function. That is, the movement toward more regulatory-based reporting, particularly regarding transition risks, is a response in part from hodgepodge or fragmented voluntary reporting standards. Today in India, we are actually in a voluntary reporting standard basically because the ESG standards are not universally implemented. They are only set for top companies. But the medium and small companies can voluntarily provide. So that kind of voluntary reporting may lead to hodgepodge or fragmented way of reporting and will not give us a right perspective. That is the reason maybe once in the next 18 months we start carbon trading in India, maybe then the regulatory may become strict and make everybody follow, and that may not be far away. Okay, so the regulatory based reporting for which we need to lobby with the policymakers on one side, and on the other side we need to update ourselves, and also on the opposite side we should make our clients ready with this regulatory based reporting when compared to the voluntary reporting standards. Okay, and standards from institutes like us have to come forward in terms of sustainability and climate disclosure guidelines, collaborating with both upstream and downstream partners in supply chain, creating a greenhouse gas emissions assessment for decision making, investment in global carbon reductions by sourcing offsets, financial reporting of various arrangements are critical areas for CMEs. Friends, in fact, I am pleased to tell you that I have collaborated with Mr. Saumin for writing our institute's, I mean to say, uh, ESG guidelines. That is under publication, which may come up anytime. It's an interesting read. You may also go to that. You will get very good knowledge by reading that book. Yeah. So likewise, institutes like us, or any professional institutes for that matter, should take the initiative of coming out with the guidelines, and they need to collaborate there with the upstream and downstream partners in supply chain, creating a greenhouse gas assessment for decision making, investment in global carbon reductions by sourcing offsets, and financial reporting of various arrangements. They are the critical areas that the CMES needs to think of always. Here, you can also act as a person who can source offsets. Okay, you can help the clients in financial reporting. Okay, so lot many roles that you can play. And currently, many companies release their ESG information directly to the public. Other data are submitted pursuant to regular surveys such as CDPs, and commercial rating companies such as Sustainalytics and RobecoSAM. So these are all databases which capture the ESG data, okay, and keep us aware. But since they capture selectively, they don't capture each and everything. Maybe we may get a what do you call biased picture. But as more companies gets covered into these databases, we may get a big picture that may come very soon, maybe in the next 2 years. Okay. Many practitioners foresee a growing demand for assurance of the accuracy of publicly reported emissions information. Okay, and but within the available information, whatever we get, that's reliable information, and practitioners see that there will be a growing demand for accuracy information from the publicly reported emission information. Okay. Today, organizations in some industries already obtain assurance for emissions information that is largely produced for government reports. Regardless of reporting standards that an organization uses to report on its emissions, it will be critical that organization institute accounting systems with effective controls and oversight to ensure data quality, reliability, and representational faithfulness. Friends, this requires the expertise and skills of management accounting teams to develop, implement, and oversee the control environment and help enhance confidence in emission assessments. This builds system-wide trust in the profession and represent the foundation of meaningful action. So, friends, in these five practitioner areas where you can practice in multiple ways and means in helping your clients, you can make it as a revenue proposition for yourself as a CMA, and that you need to pursue it vigorously by updating yourself. So now we are fast approaching to take a summary with the terminology that we as CMAs understand quite well. So the summary of CMA's role in carbon markets is like this. Management, we the management accountants play a crucial role in helping organizations reduce their carbon footprint by providing financial and strategic insights that drive sustainability initiatives. And here are several ways in which management accountants contribute to this important goal. If somebody is late now, he can go through this keenly when I explain, so he'll get the complete idea. So what CMAs are expected to do? First and foremost, cost analysis and reduction. CMAs can analyze the costs associated with various processes, products, or activities within the organization. By identifying areas where carbon emissions are high and costs are excessive, they can recommend change to reduce both. This may include the adoption of more energy efficient technologies, the optimization of supply chains, or the elimination of wasteful practices. So, as a cost and management accountant, your role is to reduce the cost and make the client gain. So, that is where you will identify the areas where carbon emissions are there. You will measure, you will set targets, you will attribute them in terms of costs. You will see the carbon footprint CVP, cost benefit and a cost volume carbon footprint analysis, and then tell the client this is what you need to do, this is what you don't need to do, this is where you need to alter in terms of supply chains, this is where you need to eliminate the wasteful practices, this is where you need to be energy efficient. These are all the ways and means through which you can play a vital role. And then comes budgeting for sustainability initiatives. CMEs can help create budgets and financial plans specifically for sustainability projects. They can evaluate the return on investment ROI for green initiatives, enabling the organization to allocate resources effectively. You can budget for sustainability initiatives of the company's friends. And while budgeting for the companies, you can also evaluate their ROIs and suggest them in ranking their various decision making approaches and tell them which decision making approach will make them successful and how cost effective it is going to be. That's going to be your role in advising your client. And then you will also be doing carbon accounting. What is this carbon accounting? Management accountants can establish and maintain systems for management accounting. Management accountants can establish and maintain systems for tracking and reporting greenhouse gas emissions. This data is essential for an organization's carbon footprint and for meeting regulatory reporting requirements. Friends, management accountants can establish and maintain systems for tracking and reporting greenhouse gas emissions. This data, of course, is essential for assessing an organization's carbon footprint and for meeting regulatory reporting requirements. So going forward, maybe our institute can lobby and say that for any regulatory disclosures. If the clients needs to get their data vetted and certified, then such certifications should happen from CMES basically. So this carbon accounting should be an exclusive area of CMES going forward, and for which a lot of work needs to be done by all CMES collectively in lobbying with our government, as this is an area which is still evolving, and this is where you need to be one step ahead of other professional institutions. And continued from the last slide, performance metrics. They can develop, the CMEs can develop key performance indicators, that is the KPIs, related to environmental impact and sustainability. This metrics allow organizations to monitor their progress, set targets, and align their actions with their sustainability goals. So you will also help the clients in creating their performance metrics like KPI, key performance indicators, which will help the company in following the various standards, targets, and plan their actions accordingly to follow those goals and targets. And as a CMA, you can help the companies in their life cycle analysis. As a management accountant, as a CMBA, you can perform life cycle assessments of products or services. This involves considering the environmental impact from the extraction of raw materials to production, transportation, and eventual disposal. This analysis can help identify opportunities for reducing the carbon footprint through a product life cycle. So in a product life cycle of a particular factory or an establishment or a service unit, whatever it is, we tend to see the extraction of raw material to work in progress to finished good to transportation and everything happening. And in each and every stage in the life cycle of a business, the handling also changes according to the life cycle. That is where your role comes in neutralizing the life cycle impacts on the clients and making the clients focus on reducing the carbon footprint throughout the product life cycles. And then you can help clients in tax incentives and credits. You can identify and maximize tax incentives and credits related to the carbon credit sustainable practices. These financial incentives can help offset the costs of win initiatives. And then you can also do scenario analysis for the client. CMEs can use financial modeling and scenario analysis to evaluate the impact of different sustainability strategies. This helps organizations make informed decisions about which initiative to pursue. And then again, sustainability reporting. Management accountants can assist in the preparation of sustainability reports, which are increasingly important for transparency and stakeholder engagement. These reports communicate an organization's environmental performance and goals to investors, customers, and the public. And then compliance and risk management. They can ensure that the organization complies with the environmental regulations and help manage potential risks associated with non-compliance or changing environmental regulations. This can be in the form of a certification periodically, maybe quarterly, given by a CMA to the companies or establishments. So this again, as I told, should be an exclusive area meant for CMAs in terms of this compliance, in terms of risk management for the units in reducing their carbon emissions. Okay. So again, in terms of supply chain management, by analyzing the environmental impact of the supply chain, management accountants can help the organization make informed decisions about suppliers, transportation methods, and inventory management, which can reduce the carbon footprint. And again, you can do investment analysis. Management accountants can assess the financial viability of green investments such as renewable energy projects or energy efficient technologies to determine their long-term impact on the organization's sustainability and profitability. And employee engagement. You can also work with HR and management to develop incentives and strategies for engaging employees in sustainability efforts, as employees play a crucial role in implementing green initiatives. Thus, friends, in summary, management accountants can provide the financial expertise and analysis needed to make sustainable choices and reduce in organizations' carbon footprint. Their role extends beyond traditional financial management and cost management and includes a focus on environmental stewardship and responsible business practices. So this concludes the role of CMAs in carbon markets, because I have collected from the entire world whatever that I could tell you today in terms of the role that a CMA can play. So thus we reached the end of part 3 of our series on carbon credit topography. So hope you got something out of this, and now I keep the floor open for Q&A. Admin, you can open the floor for question and answers.
Yes, sir.
And yeah, thank you. Anybody is taking initiative to ask a question, to initiate and to begin a question for others to follow? So please add me, note that I am attending and give me CEP hours. That admin will do. Yeah. Can you give us few links for targets such as research databases? Okay. Yeah, I can provide that. That's not a problem. And all 3 parts were very comprehensive into a nascent, complex, but upcoming field. Thank you. Interesting, instilling immense insights, very informative presentation series. There are not many messages like this. Thank you. But you need to ask questions.
Sir, is there any maturity model for climate action which has been created maybe by UN or any other agency?
Yes. Yes, they have a model. Yeah, they have a model. Not only UN, but also S&P created a model. Okay. And Bloomberg created a model. Dow Jones created a model. And there are big companies in America like GE, which also created a model sometime back, not in the recent past. Yeah, there are many models. Where can we access the parts of these PPTs? In fact, if you are in the group of CMA professional, I have already put it there. I have already put my part 1 and part 2. Part 3 I will load today. Yeah.
Sir, all of us are not members of that particular WhatsApp group, so
Okay.
with
Then how
WIRC
can
we will get it.
maybe admin, you can ask admin to send you. I will send admin. Okay.
Sure, sir. Thank you.
Yeah. Yeah. Anybody else? Yeah.
Sir,
please.
besides this GHG, there will be other things like plastic waste, which is a solid waste, which is also adding to global warming. So, would that also be covered in this carbon trading?
No. It's not there. So far, it's not there. Maybe that will come when people like you and I insist on that. Yeah.
But sir, just to add on that, I think there is a separate concept of plastic credits which is being promoted globally. I don't know if
Correct.
it is a part in it is in India or not.
In carbon credit standards, so far, so it is not there. But there is a momentum for reducing the plastic wastes. That momentum is NGO based, and that momentum is what you call the inspirational personalities, message oriented instilling basis. Okay, but that hasn't yet gained any kind of the regulatory credits for it to be reduced at. Maybe once the wastage gets into the eyes of big time policymakers from USA and other people, when they feel the brunt of it, they will adopt that. But so far, so see, in advanced countries, they are not using plastics. So that's the reason they are least bothered about this. But the guys affected by plastics are you and I. Though in India also there is a ban, but that is strictly not implemented in all the places. Yeah. So that needs to be universally recognized for it to gain momentum like carbon footprint reduction. Yeah. Any other questions, please? Admin, shall we call it a day then? We are not getting any questions.
Yes, sir. Thank you. Thank you so much for the
Yeah.
wonderful series, sir.
Yeah. Thank you,
We look
friends.
forward to your continuous support on future activities of Institute, sir.
Sure, definitely. Definitely. Yeah.
Thank you,
Thank you.
sir. Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much. Thank you, friends.
Okay.
Have a
Thank
nice
you.
good night. Yeah.